This episode is brought to you by Hostfully. Using Hostfully, you can create a free digital guidebook for your listing so that you can save time creating a professional experience for every guest that comes and visits your spot. Learn more at hostfully.com.
Welcome to Get Paid for Your Pad, the definitive show on Airbnb hosting, featuring the best advice on how to maximize profits from your Airbnb listing, as well as real-life experiences from Airbnb hosts all over the world. Welcome.
Get paid for your pad. Get paid for your pad. Get paid for your pad.
Welcome to another episode of Get Paid for Your Pad, and today I am discussing the April news updates with Margot, CEO of Hostfully. Margot, how are you?
Hello, everybody. Good day to you.
It's a very rainy day here in Singapore. I just got back from a scuba diving trip in Tioman Island, and if you're into scuba diving and if you're into tropical islands, Tioman Island, Google image it and you'll see it's a really amazing island. So it was super fun.
Awesome. Yeah, I just got back yesterday from Legoland in Carlsbad, California, right near San Diego. A very different trip than yours, but also really great if you have young kids. So I actually highly recommend it, even though I really hate amusement parks. We had a lot of fun as a family.
That sounds great. What else have you been up to this month? Anything interesting in Airbnb related?
Yeah, I was actually at the VRMA Spring Forum event, which was in Charlotte, North Carolina last week. And it was so fun to be at that event. It was, the VRMA has an international event, which is in October this year. And they used to have these kind of bi-coastal events. And so this one was supposed to be the smaller one. But I was talking to some folks at VRMA and the event just got bigger and bigger. And I think they had upwards of like 350, 400 different property managers there, and a lot of exhibitors, and it was really fun gathering. It was a great experience. I got a chance to talk to a lot of people about property management, where it's headed, and hear some of their concerns about, like, for example, how Google is indexing listings, and also how they should be growing their business. And it was just a really awesome experience. I had a lot of fun.
Any interesting insights?
Well, I got to go to the conference because I was a speaker, and I spoke about using storytelling to do better advocacy for property managers in their local regions. And that was really fun. But my big insights that I learned that were fresh to me were that the vacation rental is thinking about some important topics, just like the rest of businesses. And these are things like how to create a great work environment so that you can hire and retain the best people, and so that those people can give great service to your customers. How to think about social impact and what your business does for the community around it, and also how to use some of those things that you might be already doing to better market your property management company. And then the third thing was, and it was so obvious, I can't believe that I haven't thought about this before, but how property managers or vacation rental managers can make the travel experience safer for women, and particularly single women traveling for work, which is what I do all the time. But thinking about things like making sure the entry is easy to operate, and making sure you're really on it when you need to respond to, issues with access to the unit, or issues with doors not working or locks not working. There were some really great tips in that session around how vacation rentals can be made better and feel more safe for women. And I actually wrote a blog post about it that I'm going to be pushing out soon. So it'd be really fun to share that with this audience, which includes some best practices that were mentioned in that session.
Awesome. Well, let me know when it's out.
Thanks. Yeah.
I'll let the audience know. Let's see. There's a number of updates that we are going to discuss. I wanted to start with an update on the Airbnb experiences. It's been a while since we've heard about experiences, and since we have gotten any good updates and numbers on it, which led me to believe that it wasn't really going that well. But now I saw an interview in Skift, and it's an interview by Diana Ting, who writes a lot about Airbnb and short-term rentals. And she interviewed Zadeh. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but I know his nickname at Airbnb is Joe Bot. He used to be the VP of product, and he now is the VP of experiences. And so his job is really to grow experiences. Like Joe Zadeh is his name. Is it pronounced that way? Do you know?
I don't know. It's Zadeh or something like
that's
that, right?
Yeah, that's right. And
I'm not going to guess.
Well, let's just call him Joe Bot. I guess maybe people call him Joe Bot because they're having trouble with his surname too. But also because I think he was responsible. He's kind of the man behind the Airbnb website, the functionality of the website, I think. And so he's done an amazing job because I really think the Airbnb website is very user friendly. Anyway, let's dive into the experience. So the experiences were launched in November 2016 at the Airbnb Open in Los Angeles, which was the last event that Airbnb has done. And I don't think there's going to be another Airbnb Open in the future. But there's going to be an event that will be organized by myself, and I'll talk about that later in the podcast. But they started with 500 experiences in 12 cities, and they have now expanded to over 30,000 experiences available in over 1,000 cities globally. So that's actually a pretty impressive growth in this. The time span is about 2.5 years. So they have seen a lot of growth. Now I have to say that obviously it's easier to grow a product when you already have millions of users using your platform. But still, I think that's pretty reasonable. Now the other big question that people have, one of the reasons I think that Airbnb wants to expand into this new type of businesses is to make it more interesting for investors, right? And so the question also is, are they able to make money with experiences? And this question was asked to Joe, and he didn't want to comment on that, which tells me that they're probably not making money with experiences yet, which is understandable because they're vetting every single experience. One of the other interesting things in the article is that Joe said that they actually refuse most of the applications because they really want to focus on the quality of the experiences. And it seems like that's paying off because over 90% of reviewers are giving Airbnb experiences 5 stars. So that's a pretty high percentage. So if you need people to vet every single experience, then obviously that jacks up the costs quite a lot. But overall, it seems like a pretty positive news on that front, even though it was obviously Joe's a little biased in his opinion.
But the other thing is, like, if you just think about the economics of experiences, I would bet money that the average cost of an experience is much lower than the average cost of a booking. And even if Airbnb is charging a higher percentage of that for it, to provide the service as a platform, there's just a little bit less money to be made for each additional experience that comes onto the platform, as opposed to an additional property, right? But the interesting thing comes when this market gets really big, because tourism activities has historically been like the impenetrable part of travel, and that there's no dominant player because all tourism activities are spread out all over the world, and there's huge variability in how you would want to book and price and position all of these different offers. And so what Airbnb is trying to do is like do a more careful approach where they're curating it. And so I agree with you, the startup costs are higher, but I'm sure that they expect that this part of their business, while it makes money, it's probably not going to be as profitable as quickly as it will down the road. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I just assume the average customer experience is about, I don't know, $50 to $100, whereas like the average cost of a booking is probably like, $100 to $200. So right there, you've got a big difference in economics, and the upside to Airbnb is much smaller.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's a smaller price ticket, and then also they have to hire many more people to vet every experience, right? So the economics are definitely not as good. There's another interesting thing that I read is that initially when they launched experiences, they thought it was going to be like more of an immersive thing where people do like a 1 day or even a 2 day experience. but they've now shortened it a lot. They're focusing much more on like shorter experiences of a couple hours or a morning, afternoon, or an evening. So that's an interesting shift and focus that they've done.
Yeah, I mean, don't you think that kind of fits more into like how people are used to spending money when they travel on tours and activities? Like people are used to booking like half-day trips, bus trips and tours and, scuba diving lessons, right, for like a half a day. So I think it's going to fits more into the model of like how people are expecting to plan their trip. It's kind of interesting to see that they wanted to try to experiment the other way, right? To say it would be more immersive and like multi-day, but I think this is just more expected from a consumer standpoint.
Yeah, no, I agree. When you're traveling, let's say you're traveling a week or so, then taking a whole day out of your vacation to go on an activity is kind of a lot to ask for. It's easier to do like a few hours. So yeah, and what you mentioned before that the market is kind of scattered. There's not like one major player dominating the space, but there are a couple platforms out there that are competitors. Like Peak is, I think, the best known one, or at least it's the one that I have known about for quite a while. So peak.com, and then also there's one called Klook, like Klook, but I think those platforms are more focused on just getting activities that already exist, right? So for example, I was just checking out some activities in Amsterdam on Klook, and it's like it's the usual suspects. It's the kennel cruise, it's the museums, it's the Heineken experience, and so these are already existing activities that you can then you can book tickets for those activities on the platform, whereas Airbnb is more focused on creating new experiences, right, with local people. So that's a bit of a different focus.
Yeah, I mean, so I was just looking up Peak and Klook in advance of this on Crunchbase, and Peak has raised about 40 million all in, and then Klook has raised like over 500 million. So they have grown. I mean, you could just sort of ascertain the size of their business from that. So Klook is a much bigger company, but Peak has a lot of cachet, at least here in Silicon Valley. They've got some really well-known investors like Eric Schmidt, who is a really well-known travel investor. Also, Jeff Donaker, who we just happened to be in contact with as well, who was actually the CEO of Yelp for many years. He's also an investor of that company. And so anyway, these are two companies that are providing these platforms that have like these kind of standard tours and activities attached to them. It will be interesting to see how they do, but I think they're both doing pretty well at this point. I keep hearing about them and that they're successful, whatever that means at this point. I wish them the best. I think it's an interesting model.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to interview somebody who's doing really well on Airbnb experiences, by the way. So I think I'm going to look out for somebody. But if you're listening to this and you are an experience host, then feel free to email me at jesper@getpaidforyourpad.com, and maybe we can do a podcast episode on experiences. Let's see what else. Airbnb has invested quite a lot of money in a company called Lyric. I think I'm not sure. Lyric raised $160 million, which is quite a lot, and Airbnb participated in this raise.
That's right. Lyric is the sister company of Wheelhouse, which you may have heard of. They provide a dynamic pricing solution. Hostfully's platform is a partner of theirs, full disclosure. And so we were happy and surprised to see that they have raised so much money. I think that they're going to be expanding beyond their current value proposition with a raise like that. There are also some other companies that have raised a lot of money recently that are kind of changing their business model, like Clearbank. I don't know if you know about them.
Yeah.
They raised money to basically be a bank, right? They're going to be, and they pivoted quite a bit. So they're like, what they're doing is basically issuing loans to startups to help fund growth, and then you pay them back on a commission of your revenue. So that was a total pivot from ClearBank. Anyway, I'm mentioning that because Lyric just raised a ton of money and we don't really know exactly what it's for. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with it.
Yeah, and I actually interviewed Lyric CEO Andrew Kitchell in episode 71 when he was still the CEO of Price Method, which was essentially they rebranded Price Method to Wheelhouse. Mm-hmm. And so if you want to listen to Andrew, who's a pretty interesting guy, you can listen to him in episode 71.
Hi, my name is Margot, and I'm the CEO of Hostfully. We are on a mission to make local travel a lot better, and we're starting with digital guidebooks to make that happen. Using Hostfully digital guidebooks, which work great on any mobile device, on desktop and in print, you can share important property information and local recommendations with your guests. You can also save time and create a great guest experience that each traveler will appreciate. Hostfully guidebooks are very fast to make, and we've included some advanced features where you can feature your custom logo, your colors, custom categories, and essentially your brand. Please take a chance to check us out at hostfully.com.
All right, let's see. There was an article on Barcelona, which is of my interest because I live there, kind of. Although
but who doesn't love Barcelona? I mean, I was only there twice, but it's like one of my favorite places too. So I want to hear about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I haven't lived anywhere for 10 years, and I wasn't planning on living in Barcelona, and I just rented an Airbnb there for a month, and I just didn't want to leave. So yeah, I definitely think Barcelona is one of the best places to be on earth. But there's a really long article on the NewYorker.com about Barcelona. And the article is titled "The Airbnb Invasion of Barcelona." But it's not really just about Airbnb. It talks mostly about how Barcelona is a major tourist city, right? And I looked up some stats out of curiosity. And so I looked at the 20 most visited cities around the world in 2018. And I was surprised to see Barcelona is on number 18. And we're talking about international visitors here. So this is excluding domestic visitors. So Barcelona is on number 18, which is pretty high, given that it's just a city of 1.6 million inhabitants. So it's a fairly small city if you think about it internationally. But just to quickly go down the list, because it's always fun to hear stats, Bangkok is number 1 with 22 million international visitors. Then London, 20 million. Paris, 18. Dubai is number 4, 16 million. Then Singapore, 15. And then New York, number 6 with 14 million. Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia with 13 million. Istanbul, Turkey, 12. Tokyo, 12 million. And then number 10 is Antalya, which is really surprising. It's it's a small city. Actually, I think it's fairly small. It's on the coast in Turkey. I mean, it's a very popular destination in Europe for people who want to escape the cold in the north and get.
It's like a resort place, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So 11 million visitors. That's a lot.
Wow.
Then number 11 is Seoul in South Korea with 10 million. Phuket in Thailand, which is also kind of a resort. It's not really it is a city, but most people who visit Phuket go to the smaller beach resorts. It's actually an island. So that's one, number 12. Then it's Makkah in Mecca in Saudi Arabia. It's because it's Mecca. That's for
right, pilgrimages, right?
Religious purposes. Yep. Then there's Pattaya in Thailand, also a beach resort with almost 10 million. Man, a lot of people go to Thailand on holiday.
Yeah.
And then 15 is Palma de Mallorca, which is a city on Mallorca. It's an island in Spain, very close, 30-minute flight from Barcelona, actually, 9 million. And then Milan in Italy, 9 million. Hong Kong, 9 million. And then Barcelona is number 18 with 9 million. And then Osaka and Bali in Indonesia complete the list. But these are just the absolute number of visitors, right? So obviously, Barcelona gets a lot of visitors, but what's even more interesting is to look at the amount of visitors per capita, because Barcelona is a fairly small city. Like New York, for example, has more international visitors, but also it's 5 times the size. And so I found some stats on what are the top tourist cities if you measure it per number of visitor arrivals per inhabitant. And guess what? On number one, by a really, really wide margin, is Dubai. With 5.7 visitors per inhabitant. And these are figures over 2015. So it might have changed a little bit.
It means that nobody lives there and a lot of people visit from other countries.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. And also the airlines are doing a very good job on stimulating tourism to Dubai, because the Middle Eastern airlines. I mean, I flew with Qatar. It's amazing. Like, I paid like 550 euros for a return trip from Barcelona to Singapore, which is really cheap. And I mean, I flew with Qatar, and it was great. They have free internet. I was actually watching my favorite sports team play a soccer match on the plane, and it was actually free. At least for the first 30 minutes, it was free.
Well, I saw an airplane over this weekend because I was in an airport. I forget which airport it was in. It actually had an advertisement on the airplane to go to Dubai. And I was like, wow. Like, it was like a road, like they had to switch it out every year, so they're having to repaint the plane to do this new ad. Anyway, it's funny that you're mentioning that, because I was like, I remember thinking that, wow, that's a big amount of spend for advertising.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure these airlines probably pay, like 5% of their kerosene, the fuel costs, and than other airlines, I imagine.
That's true. Oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
But I mean, these airlines I've flown with Etihad, Emirates, Qatar, and I mean, these are just by far the best airlines I've ever flown. Oh, they're great. With. I mean, even economy class, like 550 euros for a return ticket, is so cheap, and then the service is amazing. Like the technology on board, like the screen, the entertainment, like everything is just great about airlines, and they're so cheap. So, but obviously that. I'm sure that drives a lot of tourists to Dubai, like Emirates. I love flying with Emirates. And so you always connect through Dubai. And so, I'm sure lots of people just do a stop over there for a couple of days or something. Anyway, going back to the list, number 2 is Amsterdam with 2.7 visitors per capita. So Amsterdam is very small, and that's why they're so high on the list. There's only like 700,000-800,000 people living there. But anyway, going back to Barcelona, it's like a top 10 city when it comes to numbers of visitors, 1.5. And by comparison, New York is not in the top of the list. It's at 0.6 visitors per inhabitant. So obviously, when you have so many visitors compared to the amount of people that live there, obviously that causes some friction, right? And so this article is all about how certain neighborhoods in Barcelona, the people are just not happy with so many tourists, which I can understand. I mean, look at Venice, right? A place like Venice. I mean, does anybody still live in Venice? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, totally.
And even in Amsterdam too, like in the city center, like most Dutch people who live in Amsterdam avoid the city center because it's just so crowded with tourists, especially in the summer. So I completely understand sort of the friction that it creates in cities. But what I don't really agree with, well, the thing is when there's friction, people they look for somebody to blame, right?
That's right.
So you can't really blame.
You got to get your torch out and go kick down somebody's door.
Yeah. You can't blame like 10 million people, like, you know what I mean? Like, you can't blame the people for coming. But and so they're looking for somebody to blame, and so Airbnb is just an easy scapegoat. But actually Airbnb is very restricted in Barcelona. You have to have a permit, and the amount of permits are limited. And so but still, like about 20% of people that visit Barcelona, 20% of the international visitors stay at an Airbnb. So that's a decent chunk. Anyway, that's it about Barcelona.
Yeah, you know what? Because Airbnb is big enough and new enough to be kind of a fresh target, and it's attracting a lot of attention. What the real impact of this is going to be is that Airbnbs or vacation rentals around the world are going to be legislated just like hotels will be. And so like all the regulations and taxation policy and stuff like that is going to evolve over the next 3 to 5 years. And cities are going to make a lot more money. I'm sort of throwing you a curveball here, Jasper, but I saw an article that I thought was interesting that the state of Tennessee in the United States, they were expecting to get something like 16 million in tax revenues from vacation rentals last year, and they ended up collecting 22 million. And so it was a huge windfall for the government, right? They were like, oh crap, like we didn't know we should be collecting tax revenue on this. So I think what Airbnb is doing is actually pushing. It's the result of Airbnb. They're not doing it, but the result is that cities are going to wisen up and figure out how to make more money off of vacation rentals when they haven't been before. So it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds around the world.
Well, I mean, and that's fair enough, right? I mean, fair enough that the Airbnb people that use Airbnb to visit cities pay the same tax as when you stay at a hotel. I'd say that's fair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. It's just hopefully that the pendulum doesn't swing too hard one way and then the other. You know what I mean? Because in some places, the hotel lobby is actually like throwing vacation rentals under the bus and saying like, oh, all the issues that you have around like, bad actors causing issues, it's all Airbnb hosts guests, right? Which is not true at all. So anyway, hopefully it doesn't hurt vacation rentals before it starts helping everybody.
Yeah, and on that topic, I saw an article in the Guardian that says hotels claims Airbnb is killing tourism industry in South Africa, and it's funny because you're right. Like the hotel industry is always trying to paint like a super black picture around Airbnb and vacation rentals and everything. But I've never actually heard that the hotel industry was claiming that Airbnb is actually killing the tourism.
Tourism, that's right.
Like tourism as a whole, like tourism, the tourism industry. So I read the article. It was kind of funny to read it because obviously that's just complete nonsense. But even in the article, they stated that that Airbnb grew by 65%, but we're still relatively small in South Africa compared to the hotel industry.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Because the hotels, and then they state that the hotel sector only saw an increase of 0.08%.
Yeah.
So that essentially means that the hotels industry didn't grow, right? Almost zero. And so apparently not growing is equivalent to being killed, I guess.
Right.
They're stating that Airbnb is killing the tourism industry. But they were still able to grow. So I don't know how you can combine those two. In my opinion, if you kill something, then it's not growing, is it? well,
also doesn't South Africa have some like political instability? So that I bet they're just experiencing like not as much growth in the economy in general. And so I bet they're just like what you were saying before. They're looking for someone to blame, right? So like another easy target. I don't know about the political situation in South Africa, but I spoke to somebody recently and they said that it wasn't the easiest place to live right now. So anyway, maybe that has to do with it.
Yeah, it could be. I know Airbnb has grown quite rapidly because Cape Town has been a very Airbnb friendly city.
Interesting.
But that might change actually because I think they're working on some regulations now. So we'll see what happens there. Well, I wanted to discuss two more things. So first of all, did you, and this is actually this happened a couple of weeks ago, but did you notice that the security deposit policy has changed on Airbnb?
Yes, we just heard about this from some customers, but I think you know the details more.
Yeah, I do. I send out an email actually to my email list, and if you haven't signed up, you can do so at getpaidforyourpad.com. But the security deposit is something that I always felt like was not a very good functionality on the Airbnb platform, and I did a video and a blog post about this a while ago. But it wasn't really a security deposit because the idea behind a security deposit is that it's secure, and so. The money should be reserved on the credit card in case there's damages so that the person is actually able to pay, right? But if you don't claim the money, if you don't reserve it on the credit card, which Airbnb didn't used to do, then there's no point calling it a security deposit. It's really nothing. because if the person doesn't have any room on their credit card, then you can't charge it. And so I guess Airbnb has realized that it was kind of nonsense to call it a security deposit if it's really not. And so they've changed it now. And so now they're actually going to reserve on the credit card. They're going to authorize the credit card for the amount of the security deposit. So that's a pretty positive change. I don't know if they're rolling out these changes in all areas. Like I got an email from Airbnb that they're going to change this in my area in Cali in Colombia, but it could be that in some areas they're not rolling it out yet.
Yeah, and I think that I can go back and check, but I'm not sure how it's supported in the Airbnb API either, because sometimes the functionality that they rolled out on the bookings platform is not made available in the API, and for this one specifically, I think we got heads up that it's coming, but I'm not sure if it's live yet, so I'd have to check. Anyway, interesting. It definitely it's a move in the right direction, I think, though. We have customers who've been asking for this.
So just to give you guys the full update on the Airbnb security deposit, it's changed in 4 ways. Airbnb will now authorize the amount of the security deposit on the guest's credit card 48 hours before check-in. Number 2, if you don't set a security deposit, they will set one for you based on certain factors such as the reservation amount. So that's a big change as well. If you don't set a security deposit, and this is not true for all listings, but Airbnb may set one for you. Number 3, if Airbnb is unable to authorize the security deposit, you can actually cancel the reservation up to 36 hours before the check-in. And number 4, Airbnb may display the security deposit more prominently. So I think those changes are all good. The only question that I have that I think is a little unclear is they say they will authorize it 48 hours before check-in, and then you can cancel up to 36 hours before check-in if they're unable to authorize the security deposit on the guest card, which basically means that you have 12 hours to cancel, right? If they try to authorize 48 hours in advance and it doesn't work, there's no room on the credit card or for other reasons, then you can only cancel the reservation up to 36 hours before check-in. So you only have a 12-hour window. So you do need to be quick to cancel. But I'm assuming you can cancel penalty-free, by the way. So if somebody books your place and is not able to, doesn't have enough room in their credit card to for the security deposit, then you're allowed to cancel that reservation, but you only have 12 hours. So that's a good shift. That's a good improvement on the security deposit. Well, essentially what it means is it's now a security deposit where before it wasn't. But you still, and this is really important, you have to file a claim through the resolution process. You still have to make a claim within 14 days of checkout or before a new guest checks in. And I've always felt like that's a little bit unreasonable, because if you have big back-to-back bookings, that basically means that the cleaning person has to check for all damages, because before the next guest check in, you have to report the incident and submit a claim. So you really only have a few hours if you have back-to-back bookings, which is kind of
that's pretty tight. Yeah,
it's very tight because you need to submit evidence, so you need to take pictures and you need to file a claim, and so if you miss that deadline, then you can't actually get the money from the security deposit. Well, unless you contact Airbnb and you complain like 100 times, then that sometimes works, I've noticed.
Yeah, but you got to be a squeaky wheel, unfortunately.
Yeah, you got to be proactive. Finally, before we finish this podcast, I wanted to mention that the Mastermind event that I'm organizing together with Eric is actually happening in Puerto Rico, June 27th until July 1st. We've a lot of
congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. It's going to be. I'm super excited about this. And we've secured a really cool villa that has like 11 bedrooms. So we'll be able to host most of the participants in the villa, and then some of the people will be accommodated at the nearby hotel. But it's a pretty cool property in Puerto Rico. It's on the beach, and so it's going to be a 3-day program. And a good amount of people have applied, and we've started making calls with those people to see if they're good fits for the event. And so just to give a quick description of the event, there's going to be 25 participants who all have 25 units or more, or at least $1 million in revenue. And so the idea behind this mastermind is really to get some of the top operators involved, because there's no real platform for those people to learn, right? If you have like 50 listings, and you have very different challenges than if you have 1 or 2 or 3 listings. And so we really wanted to get some of the top operators together to brainstorm, to mastermind, and to build relationships with other people that are playing at a similar level in the industry. So if you are a big operator and you're listening to this, whether you're a property manager or whether you're doing releasing or you've invested in lots of properties, if you're interested, then you can go to getpaidforyourpad.com/STR. So that stands for short-term rental. And you'll be redirected to the application page where you can then apply, and then you will get a phone call from either me or Eric to discuss whether this event is a good fit for you or not. And so, yeah, it's going to be super, super interesting to get all these people together. Super excited. To quickly give the details on the event and on the application page, there's more information as well. But it's going to be June 27th, Thursday night. We kick it off, and then we end on Sunday night, Sunday, June 30th, and then we have the villa until Monday morning, so you can fly out on Monday if you want. So it's going to be a 3-day event, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The first 2 days are going to be focused on education, on masterminding, brainstorming, just learning from each other. We're going to give everybody a good overview of who's participating and what type of business they're running, so that people already have an idea of who they want to connect with. And also on Sunday, we're going to do an excursion. We've secured a pretty cool adventure/excursion activity. I don't want to disclose what it is exactly, but it's going to be super fun. And so I'd say the whole event is, part of it is educational, part of it is connecting, networking with other participants, but part of it is also going to be a really fun experience. It's going to be a cool travel experience. So it's a good combination between education and fun. So again, if you want to apply, just go to the URL getpaidforyourpad.com/STR, and that will redirect you to the application page. And if you have any questions about the event, you can also email me at jasper@getpaidforyourpad.com, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. And that's it.
Thanks for having me, Jasper.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on the show, Margot. Always a pleasure. And for the listeners out there, of course, thanks for listening. And until next week.
Get paid for your pad. 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 Get paid for your pad.